Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, the second in a four-part series on how to use signagelive. My name is Lisa Yates and I'm a sales engineer for signagelive. Today on chat we have Robbie, who will be answering any questions you may have during this webinar. We estimate this webinar will take no longer than 30 minutes. Today we'll be looking at playlists and covering the following: creating playlists, managing playlists, creating nested playlists, creating localized playlists, and creating localized playlist users, and finally, the use of conditional assets. So I've gone to my internet browser, and I've logged into signagelive, and I'm on our remote media sales network today. So if I go to content and I go to playlists, so we're now in the playlist creator. So if we just go through the screen that's in front of us at the moment, so from the top left hand corner we've got add new asset. So if you wanted to add any new assets to your signagelive network, you do that by using that button. Below that we've got a search bar, so you can search through the assets that you've uploaded to your signagelive network. So we'll do a search now for signagelive, and hit return. And now anything that either has signagelive in the title or signagelive as an associated tag will appear in these thumbnails on the right hand side. Within the search we can also perform an advanced search. So I can search for signagelive, and in the advanced search I can search for something where the date's added or when it was last used. So we've got the from and the to. Below that we've got our smart folders. So if I hit all, that will take us back to everything that's sitting on our network, all of the assets. We've then got recently added, last used, unsorted, control assets that we'll come back to later, trash, and then below that we've got my folders. So what we can do is we can actually create new folders and then drop our assets into them. So to do that, all you do is you hit new folder, you give the folder a name, and you hit create folder. It will then appear below. And then what we can do here is we can actually drag our assets into these folders. So as you can see, if I go into this education folder, there's lots of education material here, plus the asset that we've just dragged in. So moving to the right hand side here, we have thumbnails of all of the assets that we've got on our signagelive network. So if I just double click into an asset, so as you can see here we've got asset information on the left hand side. So we've got the type, the size, the resolution and the format. We've also got any tags that are associated with that asset. From that we can actually add any more tags in if we wish to. So that tag has now been added to that asset. And then to get back to our library, we just click this pink button that says back to library, and then we're back where we started. So below that we've got our playlist timeline. So what we do here is we drag on our assets to create our playlist. So let's start doing that now. So we've got JPEG there. You can also multiple select and then drag all of those assets on. So we'll now look for some different file types. So we've got an MP4 there. We'll look for a media RSS using the search bar. So we'll use the Sky Video weather there, so we'll just drag that on. And this is saying, you know, do we want to play this media RSS to length or for a set duration? So we'll get that to play to length because that's actually a video of the weather. So we'll hit save. So that's now on our playlist and the duration is play to length. So once we've made up our playlist of all of the content that we want to add to it, as you can see here, you've got the duration. So at the moment that's running at 2 minutes 12, and also the size and how many assets are within the playlist that we've just created. So what I can do from here is I could save that playlist if I was happy with the content in it. I can preview it. So if I hit preview, and we'll say preview all from the start. And what I can do here is I can go through the assets. And then once I'm happy to get out of that, all I need to do is on the right hand side at the bottom, we have this little door. If I click on the door, it takes me back to my playlist creator. And then below that we've got clear. So if I hit clear playlist, that will just clear the playlist that we've just created. So what I'm going to do here is the third asset along, this JPEG, that's not going to work in the current playlist that I've created, because rather than it being landscape, it's actually a portrait image. So I just need to get rid of that. So to do that, if I right click, I can go to remove from playlist, and that removes that from my playlist for me. What we can also do within that right click function is we can set the asset duration. So JPEGs and image files will play for 10 seconds as default. If you want to change that, there's two ways of doing that. So within the right click, we can do it and set it manually. Or if we actually hover over the JPEG and we hover over the end, we can actually then pull that out to a specific time. So now it's playing for 41 seconds. What we can also do under a right-click function is we can reset the duration. So that will take that back to the 10-second default. We can remove from playlist, as you've just seen, and we can set some conditional playbacks. So if I hit conditional playback, what I can do here is I can set a validation period. So for that specific asset that we've clicked on within our playlist, we can set up a time where we'd like it to start and finish. So we could say it was valid from today until next Wednesday. What we can also do is we can set recurrences. So we could have it coming on at the weekend or during the week, or we can select any days that we want it to play or not to play within our playlist. We can also select times associated with that. So where this works well is if you think in a restaurant environment where you'd have 3 separate menus, one for breakfast, one for lunch, one for dinner. They may all be running in the same playlist, and then all you'd need to do is just go into the actual asset with the menu on and then just set a recurrence for the days and then for a start time and an end time. What we can also do is if we look at the top here, we can set the playback conditions. So I can get the asset that we've selected to play on all of our players, or to only play on players that match certain tags. So when you set up a player on your signagelive network, it gives you the options to add tags to that player. So if I had 5 players on my network, one of them was tagged, say, London, because it was in my London office. If I only wanted this asset to play on the player in my London office, which was tagged London, all I do is hit only play on players matching tag, and then I'd put London in there as my tag reference, and then hit save. So that's how you set your conditional playbacks. For you to be able to review that on each individual asset within a playlist, all you need to do is just hover over the asset, and as you can see here, what we've got is we've got the name of the file, the file type, the duration that it will play for. We've got when it's valid from and valid to. We've got any recurrences set against it, any start and end times, and any player tags as well. So once you're happy with your playlist and you're happy with any of the conditional playbacks that you've set on your individual assets, all you need to do then is just hit Save Playlist, and then you just give your playlist a name, and then you hit Save. Once you've then deployed your playlist out to all of your screens, if you need to make any changes to your playlist, so to add any new items in or to take any items out of the playlist, you'd need to do it via Manage Playlists. So if we go up to the top of the screen and go to the second tab in, Manage Playlists, so this is now loading all of the playlists that we have sitting on our signagelive network. So again, I can search for them. But what we'll do is we'll use this screensaver, signagelive screensaver playlist. So what I'm going to do is just double click into the playlist. So now this is generating the timeline of all of the assets that are sitting in that playlist. So all I need to do now is just add any new items to the playlist, remove any out that I don't want anymore, and then hit Save. So this is now bringing up a warning, and it says overwriting a playlist will send a new playlist to all players to which it has already been deployed. To press Save to continue, save as new playlist, or choose a different name or cancel. So if I hit Save now, any of the players that are currently playing the content from this signagelive screensaver playlist will get the new material that I've put in, and will have any items that I've removed taken out of that playlist when they next do their content check. If I save it as a new playlist, then I'll name the playlist and it will just appear again in my managed playlist as a brand new playlist that I can deploy out to any of my screens. But it's a really easy way for you to go in, make any updates to playlists that are currently being run on screens, hit save, and then know that any of the new items that you've put in or anything that you've deleted out will automatically change when your players next go to do their content check. Let's look at our control assets now. So if we go back to creating a playlist, and let's just drag and drop a few items onto our playlist to get us started. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go into our smart folders and we're going to go into control assets. So we have 4 control assets for you here. The first one being a capture card. Now a capture card will pull on an external source. So this could be the news perhaps, or a TV sort of feed. So what you need to do for this is if you wanted the capture card to appear within your playlist, all you do is literally drag and drop the capture card and then set the duration. So for however long you'd want to play that capture card source. The next one we have is interrupts. Now an interrupt is traditionally triggered by a key press or mouse click within signagelive. So what we can do is we can set content against that. So if you had our display edition and you had a layout with the playlist that we're creating at the bottom playing in one of your windows, and you dropped an interrupt into there with a different playlist, what it would do is when your playlist that you're creating at the bottom here got to the interrupt, it would pause everything else that was going on the screen. The interrupt content would take over, play to the length that you've set for it, and then once it had finished, it would go back to the content that was on the screen before, so our layout with a playlist that we've created at the bottom here. So to set an interrupt into a playlist, all you do is you just drag your interrupt down, and then you select your key press, and then you hit OK. So as you can see here, you've got this blue line that's appeared within our timeline, and it's got key A associated with it. So next up we've got the localized playlist, but I'm going to skip that for a second and go on to nested playlists. So a nested playlist within signagelive is a playlist within a playlist, which effectively allows you to have one master playlist and be able to drop playlists into that playlist with different content that you can play. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drop a nested playlist into my timeline. We need to then give this nested playlist a name. And then we can either generate an empty playlist or we can use an existing playlist. So if we've already created something that we want to use as a nested playlist, we could hit use existing, and then we just need to go off and select that playlist. So if I hit the blue button and then just go and find the playlist that I want to add in as a nested playlist. So we'll use the signagelive screensaver. And now I just need to select some playback. So the playback mode, so I can get it to play all assets, or play next asset. Now if I choose to play the next asset, what it will do is it will play the playlist that we're creating now at the bottom. But when it gets to our nested playlist, it will play the first asset. And then when it gets to our nested playlist for the second time, it will play the second asset, and so on. We can select the duration, so we can get it to play to length, or we can play it to a set duration. And we can also set the playback order, so we can have that normal, random, reverse, or we can get it to play the top X number of items within that playlist. Once we're happy with our nested playlist that we've configured, all we do is we hit OK. And as you can see, our nested playlist has now appeared in our timeline at the bottom. What we can do with our nested playlist now is within the right click, we can set conditional playback to this playlist. So I could set a validation period for this playlist. I could set recurrences for this playlist. And I could also set playback conditions for this nested playlist. So exactly the same as we did on our individual assets within our playlist, but on a nested playlist, so on either a pre-created playlist or an empty playlist. So finally, let's look at our localized playlist. With a localized playlist, you can actually assign message manager users to update the content for these playlists. And you also assign localized playlists to players, so players that are sitting on your digital signage network. So let's start by putting a localized playlist onto the playlist that we're creating at the bottom here. So we now need to configure this localized playlist. So first of all, we need to give it a name. We can either create a playlist per player, or we can create one for all of our players. And then we need to put in our maximum number of assets. So these are the assets that we're going to assign to a user. So if we say we'll put in 10 here, so we're going to assign a user 10 assets that they can change within this localized playlist. We then need to select the playback mode. So we can then get it to play all of the assets or play the next asset. Playback duration, play to length, or play for a set duration, and then the playback order. So you've got normal, random, reverse, or play the top X items. And now what we need to do is we need to select the players that this localized player playlist will be played on. So if I hit select players, I'm going to do a search for Samsung screens. And I'm going to add all of these players and then hit OK. So we've just configured a localized playlist with the maximum of 10 assets that can be put into this playlist. And we've selected it on all of our Samsung players. So once we're happy with that, all we do is we hit OK. And now that's actually configured our localized playlist within our playlist that we've been creating here at the bottom. So how do we assign these local playlist users? So if we go up to the top and we go to toggle header, and then we go to users, and we go to manage local users, and all we do here is we select our user. So we'll select Robbie Williams, and then we select the players that he is going to be able to have control of. And we're going to move these Samsung players over because they're the Samsung units that we've actually assigned to that localized playlist. And what we can also do here for this local user, Robbie Williams, is we can actually set up user tags. So tags associated with assets that he will then be able to see when he logs into signagelive. So if I put signagelive in there, he will be able to see any tags associated with signagelive as a user. So that's it for today. We've covered off creating playlists, managing playlists, creating nested playlists, creating localized playlists, creating local playlist users, and the use of conditional assets. Thank you for your time this afternoon. Join us next week when we'll be covering layouts, which will include creating layouts, schedulable zones, editing RSS feeds, adding static zones including picture-in-picture, and looking at some of our widgets including QR codes.